once again, everybody, and welcome to the Tournament Poker Edge podcast. I'm your host, Clayton Fletcher, here in beautiful, bucolic, scenic Secaucus, New Jersey, where I am actively participating in the World Series of Poker circuit event for the 2020-2021 season, because who knows what's around the corner. Will this pandemic ever end? Will we ever be able to play poker in person? But I've been listening to you guys, and I hear your feedback loud and clear. 99% of all of our listeners are sick of hearing me talk to myself, and that's why this week we have a returning guest, and one of our favorite guests, very popular guy, really excellent poker player, $8 million both online and live in cashes, but you probably know him best as Asher's daddy. Please welcome back to the show, Matt Stout. My man, how are you?
Doing pretty well, buddy. How are you?
Really great, really great. How's the fam?
They are amazing. We just posted fall pictures because I got dragged to an apple orchard 40 minutes away to take pictures by a tree all dressed up in fall colors.
Wow.
I'm honored that they still let me in the pictures because those two are so damn cute, and I am Matt Stout.
Well, you're very handsome yourself, Matt. I'm sure the pictures are beautiful.
Thank you, Clayton. I was fishing for that compliment.
Yeah, I felt obligated, to be honest. So you are known for many, many things. We talk on this podcast quite a bit about the CSOP, the Charity Series of Poker, and you guys are doing a virtual event this weekend. Tell everybody about it. What's going on?
We are doing, we kind of had to adjust a little bit thanks to this pandemic and all. We had our usual April 4th event scheduled and planned, and it's the biggest production we do all year. It's dinner for 260 people and a live auction to go with the silent auction. It's basically like a gala and then a poker tournament. It's a whole big experience, and it's kind of our flagship event, and we were really disappointed that we couldn't perform it live out of, an abundance of caution in the midst of a pandemic and all. So we have pivoted and are running the event on Faded Spade this Saturday. It's going to be a $500 ticket, and you get to experience the video program from St. Jude, hear a lot about the mission of the hospital, hear from a patient speaker. It's emceed by Joe Stapleton, and then after the 45-minute program, we're going to do 30 to 45, we're going to do a nice little freeze out. We're still doing a WSOP main event seat up top, so there's still a lot of meat on the bones. It's going to be a fairly small field since we didn't have a ton of time to market this after we finally got it approved. There's a lot of back and forth and behind the scenes trying to get these things up and running. So we expect it to be a pretty good value for people at a $500 price point, donation to St. Jude, and also getting the opportunity to play for a main event seat, hop on the Twitch stream, talk to Stapleton, Negreanu, Golden Knight. Ryan Reeves is going to join us and play the tournament and get interviewed on the Twitch stream by Joe. It's going to be a good time. This is the first time we're doing an online event, so it's going to be a learning experience and hopefully something we can expand on to continue doing some more of these. Even without the pandemic, I think it's a good idea for our usual annual beneficiaries to still run their live event once we can run those again, and then consider also running an online event, the other side of the calendar once a year.
Yeah, for sure. This could be the beginning of something really good. So are you worried at all about any glitches, the first time you're running an online event? Have you been able to test the software? Do you think things will be smooth, or are there going to be some bugs in the mix?
I think that I just mostly have concerns about the production aspect of it, making sure the stream goes smoothly, we and racks in the appropriate fashion, just doing a lot of little things like that, right? I've tested the software. It seems solid. I don't have any complaints. I think that it'll be a really fun event. The poker tournament itself shouldn't be an issue. It's just the logistics of getting everyone registered, making sure that the production, the stream goes smoothly, just that we all have a good time and raise some money for a great cause.
I'm going to participate for sure. I always support your events. I didn't even know about this one, which kind of proves your point that you didn't really have time to market it. But now that you're telling me about it, I'll be there. I'm going to do it. I love you guys. I love Stapes. So how's that going to work? Is he going to be streaming the poker as well?
So we're just going to have them in observer mode so that we can do everything live and no one has to worry about hole cards being shown. So we're just going to have one box with Stapleton in the Twitch stream, one box with whoever the guest is at that point, which will switch between me, Negranu, Ryan Reeves, you, other players who are notable, fun people to have in the chat. So we'll have 3 boxes, one with Stapes, one with the guest, and then one big one with the table that they're playing at so that they can kind of talk about the action, but more so just chat about, why they support St. Jude, why they support CSOP, why they do the things they do, and why they do them so well.
Yeah, right. So what about Faded Spade? Not everybody that's listening to this knows what that is. How does it work? Do I have to download software? Can I play on my cell phone? Like, any questions you think people might have about playing this event on Faded Spade?
Yeah, so the Faded Spade platform is a play money platform. Chips have no cash value. So none of the money goes to Faded Spade. It all gets donated directly to St. Jude, and then they get issued a ticket to the event as part of the program. So it's a play-in browser experience. There's no download required. It's mobile friendly. You can play from a cell phone. You can play anywhere in the U.S. per St. Jude's rules. Our future events on Faded Spade may be international. We have to, get that discussed with the legal team and the board and all. But it's really exciting to be able to kind of help these charities that need to raise funds more than ever, especially St. Jude. That I've been personally affected by cancer a lot this year. I lost my 2-year-old great nephew in June to cancer, and it was one of the most brutal things my family's ever gone through. And now my nephew, who was the father of the child, his mother also has breast cancer now, so it's definitely been a rough year for us, especially with cancer specifically. So St. Jude's always been one of my favorite charities to support. Now it's really getting forefront in the center as the main charity that I really want to put my life's work and my efforts behind.
Well, it's always been one of my favorites too. I mean, it's hard to think of a better cause than helping children who are sick. You know what I mean? Like, it's hard to think of a more worthy cause than that. So, I've attended your St. Jude event in the past, and it's always great. And I'm looking forward to, seeing how we can do it online. And like you say, maybe we can end up doing even more for them, through CSOP, both online and virtually. So now for our listeners, just so they understand, you're saying it's a $500 buy-in to play in this freeze out, and they can write that off. Does that go to the charity?
The money goes directly to St. Jude. They would go to stjude.org/againstallodds, and then buy a ticket, and they can write off the majority of the purchase. For events, for direct donations, 100% of it is deductible. When you do events, technically there's supposed to be a fair market value attached to the seat. So for like our $300 events, a lot of times it's, if you buy in for $300, we assign like a fair market value of $50 or something to the chips for the purposes of it having value and trying to win a main event seat and things like that. So we assign some small portion of it that becomes the fair market value. So you can write off the difference between the price and the fair market value, if that makes sense. So I think for the $500 ticket, they're assigning a fair market value of 100 or 150, and they'll be able to write off at least 350 or 400 of it.
Great. So, just to be able to play in a poker tournament and also deduct it from your tax bill at the end of the year is kind of a nice little perk. As of course we're doing it for the children and all of that, but it's also nice to get that tax break at the end of the year. So you mentioned that you don't expect a huge turnout for this. So if I pay the $500, what do you think my odds of winning the main event seat? Well, maybe not my odds, but a good player's odds of winning the main event seat would be.
Stop ruining my joke. I was all ready to swoop in. I was figuring out how to word it. I was going to let you finish talking while I broke down how insignificant Clayton Fletcher specifically's odds would be. But now that we've gotten to the point where you ruined the joke, I'll just try to think of another joke. But it's always tough when I'm up against a stand-up comedian just trying to match that level of humor as an amateur. It's tricky.
I beat you to the punch, Matt.
You really did. You're too good, Clayton. You covered your tracks well. Bravo, worthy adversary. So I think that a lot of it depends. One of our sponsors has 30 seats, but I don't think that he's going to use many, if any, of them. Okay. I believe we have somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 to 40 registered as of right now. I'm sure we're going to have some last-minute buy-ins, but I think that it's going to be a field of 50, 60 people would be my estimate. So it's definitely a pretty good opportunity with a nice small field and a lot of meat up top. Plus, if I win or my wife wins, we don't take the prize. So we just pretend that we weren't there and just bump everyone up a spot like we got DQ'd from the W Coop main.
That's great. All right, cool. So I hope to win second if you or your wife get first.
Mac Verstandig and I had this whole conversation, and then I talked to Negrano about it because Mac was like, okay, you can't win prizes as president of CSOP. I'm like, all right, that's fine. And then I talked to Negrano, and I was like, I just wasn't going to play because I'm not allowed to win prizes. He's like, just play because they want to play with you and then DQ yourself. I was like, oh, interesting idea.
Yeah, it's a great idea. So you get to play. So if you sign up for this tournament, you will be doing something good for St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital, and you also get an opportunity to play online poker with Matt Stout. Is Daniel going to play too, or is he just doing commentary this time?
Negrano will be playing, as will Golden Knight Ryan Reeves.
Wow, that's awesome.
It'll be fun.
Yeah, and of
course, as with Clayton Fletcher, you get to try to stack Clayton Fletcher. Podcast legend Clayton Fletcher will be in the heezy.
Now, when we do these live, I'm usually a bounty, which it's already easy enough to beat me at poker, and now you're going to also like incentivize them to take me out, so it's pretty brutal. Are there any other prizes we should know about besides that main event seat for first place?
Yeah, we didn't do bounties for this one because it's a little bit tricky logistically. We wanted to make sure the first event goes smoothly without having too many moving parts. But we're doing top three, and it'll be the main event seat. The second place consolation prize is a meet and greet or online poker or virtual poker lesson via Zoom with Dan Negrano. We actually, if hockey comes back, we will probably also give them the option of going to a Knights game with Negrano instead, because that was originally what the prize was going to be. But we wanted to pivot and make it a little more feasible in the pandemic. And you caught me off guard. I forgot what third place is.
Okay, but there is a prize for third place, and it might even be listed on that website, which we'll be sure to give out again at the end of this episode, so everybody can sign up. Well, I hope some of you guys will do it. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's this coming Saturday, October 24th. Everything starts at 7 p.m. Eastern, correct?
7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific at that event website, stjude.org/againstallodds. It will be a 30 to 45 minute video program, and the tournament will be right after that. Players will receive an email pre-event going out either tonight or tomorrow for people that are already registered, giving them detailed instructions on how to go to the Faded Spade St. Jude website and create a player login. It's a really easy process, and then just go into tournaments, find the tournament, click register, and you're good to go. But we'll have it all broken down step by step, and we'll have people on hand to help with any issues.
Great. So, is there chat on Faded Space? I've never played on there. Is there chat? Can I talk trash if I'm at your table?
Absolutely. That's why we're encouraging people to use their real names so that we know who we're actually talking smack to. I like to talk crap behind people's back. I want to do it right to their face.
Yeah.
So we're going to be on Zoom and drinking, and it's going to be fun. We're going to do everything we can to replicate the good vibe experience that we have live online.
Yeah, I mean, all of my regular listeners, Matt, they know how much I love participating in these CSOP events and how much fun they are. And I'm looking forward to my very first experience with the online version. And I guess it's going to be everybody's first experience with the online version. But, it's pretty star-studded. I mean, you got a professional hockey player from your favorite hockey team. You've got Joe Stapleton, who to me is the king of all poker broadcasters. You've got Daniel Negreanu, who I think a lot of our listeners have probably heard of at some point. Most notably, I think he's going to be playing a heads-up match against Doug Polk, who's really well-liked.
People love him.
So, yeah, it should be a good time. And so I'll be able to play, and I'll also be able to see what's happening on the stream as well at the same time.
Yeah, that's why we're keeping the cards face down so that everything's live. So we'll just be switching between tables to show different players and the all-ins, and we got Justin Kelly hanging out, handling all the production stuff for us. He's the man.
Yeah.
Appreciate him for getting involved, and it's going to be a good time.
Well, I hope that we can get some of you guys to join us. It's this Saturday, the 24th. All right, well, Matt, before we run out of time, you said you wanted to discuss a hand of poker that you played recently, and I know a lot of people they would kill me if I had you as a guest and we didn't do some strategy. So what do you got for us?
It's funny you say recently, because I was going through some of my recent hands, and I just kept thinking about this hand that I played in 2013 that I still can't get over.
Oh, okay.
So,
we're going back in time. Great.
It's an interesting one though, and I think it solves a lot of concepts that are still relevant today. So this hand was near the money. I think it's 5 away from the money with 68 left, 63 pay in the 10K PLO Championship at the World Series of Poker. It's blind versus blind. I'm in the big against Daniel Lai in the small blind.
Okay. Well, for those who don't know, Daniel Lai is an extremely well-known, very accomplished professional player. He's been around forever. I can remember seeing him on the first season of High Stakes Poker with Gabe Kaplan back in the day. So he's not some new guy fresh off the boat. He's a crusher. It's interesting you bring this hand up already, Matt, because the last couple of episodes we've been talking about bubble play. Should be fun. And we don't get a lot of PLO on this podcast either, so this is going to be exciting. It's a $10,000 PLO World Championship in Vegas. 68 players left and 63 to be paid, and we're in the big blind.
Yep, and I think it's 930K or something for first. It's not an insignificant first place prize that we're playing for.
Right.
It was a 30K starting stack, and I have 320K, and Alai has me covered because he's a boss. So we're super deep here. It's basically like 11 starting stacks effective. And folds to Alai, and he's been playing. He's usually like just really good at being a chameleon. Like he'll play super tight when he should, and he'll just play like a monster and super aggressive when he should. He's just really, really good all around. And he's been playing pretty aggressively near the bubble. I'm torn on whether I thought he was trying to run me over, because I know he had a lot of respect for me. We played a lot together deep in Bellagio, 15Ks and stuff. He just always seemed to be at my table, and we always kind of ended up battling. But I think he has a pretty good amount of respect for my game. So it folds to him, and I'm hoping he limps and he full pots it to 15K at 2,500 5K.
Did you say he's on the button?
No, he's small blind.
Oh, he's small. Okay, so this is a blind battle. Okay. So, yeah, he
Yep.
full pots from the small blind. Now, let's talk a little bit about theory of PLO tournaments, because I know a lot of our listeners probably have never even played one. A lot of us play PLO cash games, but we play a lot of no limit hold'em tournaments. So kind of just talk a little bit generally before we get into the specifics here, if you don't mind, Matt. Just kind of give people how is it different in the bubble stages of a PLO tournament than what we're more used to, which is like a no limit hold'em tournament?
Things get real funky in PLO. Like, equity playing so close together means that there's times where, even though I don't have it in me to do so, that it's probably statistically correct to fold aces pre.
Wow.
Like, aces aren't that big of a favorite against good hands in PLO.
Right.
Any like non-pair, non-ace, like double suited hand is going to have over 40% equity for the most part, and any like really, really good hands like queen jack 10-9 double suited is going to be almost even money with bad aces. Instead, like, there's a lot of spots in no limit tournaments where you need to be, instead of just needing to be chip EV profitable and over 50%, and even with tournament considerations, you're only going to need to be a little bit above chip EV in normal spots. That becomes like, that gets to the point in no limit and in PLO, regardless of the game, where your equity in terms of ICM is going to need to be 60% plus for it to be correct to get it in, because you need to be such a big favorite that the chips you can gain outweigh the risk of ruin and busting on the bubble, etc. So it's easy to get to that point in no limit, because the hands that are nutted in no limit have such great equity against your opponent's range that it's still a clear. There's just like a lot of really weird, funky spots where you should pot control or even consider folding with really, really strong hands, because the bubble dictates that, if you have two buy-ins or two starting stacks or even three starting stacks, and you can cash for 1.5 or 2+ buy-ins, that it just doesn't make sense to gamble as like a 55% favorite against someone's range. Like, it just, once the bubble considerations come into play, it becomes like a really obvious fold. And it's a mind F. I'll try not to curse on your podcast.
Thank you, sir.
It puts you in all these spots where you're just like, oh, I can't believe I have to fold this spot. Those can't believe I have to fold this spot become even worse in PLO.
Right.
But it is the great game, and it's more fun than no limit, and I highly recommend that people transition if they haven't already, because, the more no limit gets solved and people are using real-time assistance and stuff, the more it's going to gravitate toward PLO and mixed games and other things that haven't been as solved. Did I have any more? I'm trying to remember if I had anything else I was trying to get to before I get back to the hand, because we have wandered so far off.
Yeah, well, Matt, I always do wander so far off. It's just kind of our listeners are used to it.
The whole podcast is just one wandering. So the other point that I wanted to get to is something that I didn't think enough about in game that I realized in talking with some of my like uber beast friends after this hand, was that when you're this deep stacked, like, the converse is also true. Like, the shorter you are, the more that if you can get in the money with your 2-3 starting stacks, the more you should try to do so. The converse is also true in that the deeper stacked you are, the less significant the bubble becomes, because the equity that can be gained from me doubling through a lie is 6 figures. Like, we have more than 10 starting stacks in a 10K. If I double through him, we're looking at gaining close to 100K in equity, if not 100K plus. I guess closer to the bubble, that's going to be a little bit lower, but yeah, I mean, it's still dealing 90,000 plus in equity.
Yeah. Now, how do you arrive at that? I mean, I'm assuming you should be pretty well above average already with your 10 times the starting stack before the money even comes in, right? Because they pay 15% of the field.
It might have been slightly lower then. Yeah, but we're both way above average. I think it might have been 15% of the field because I remember this being like chip lead pot or very close to it once we get it in.
Yeah. Okay. So if you do manage to double through him in this blind versus blind confrontation, would you be the chip leader in the tournament or very close to it?
Top three, definitely.
Top
yeah.
three. Okay, great. Yeah. So that's kind of the other side of the coin, and it's interesting because we have been talking quite a bit on this podcast about ICM and how many players misunderstand that ICM doesn't mean that you should never take any chances. It just means that many times it's correct to fold and just make sure you at least cash. But yeah, I mean, if you have a spot where you're a huge favorite to double up, because like you say, then your actual proposed equity would be in the close to six figures in the tournament.
Well, my equity's already around six figures. I already have like 10 starting stacks in the 10K.
Right.
Almost 11. So the gain, I can gain another almost 100K, if not 100K plus, by doubling up to 22 starting stacks or 21 point whatever. So that just was something I wasn't thinking enough about. And have started to consider more after that because, it's a learning experience. I'd only been playing for a living for like 7 years. I probably should have thought about it by then, but.
Yeah, but had you been playing PLO for 7 years, it's a little different, right?
Actually, I haven't. This was like very, very early in my. This may have been the first time I played the 10K PLO, if not the second. It was pretty early in my PLO playing days.
All right, well, I think now we're ready to hear what 4 cards you have.
So, I'm in the big with Queen 10, 10, 3.
We lost you for a second. Can you repeat it? Queen 10, 10, 3.
I wish I didn't have to say it again because I probably should have just folded pre based on Alai being a boss. I also may have overvalued the hand since I was still kind of wet behind the ears. Queen 10, 10, 3 double suited.
Okay. I'm not going to pretend that I know enough about PLO tournament strategy to say for sure, but I think it's probably a fold.
Yeah, I mean, there's an argument for if I think he's raising really, really wide that it probably has enough of equity to defend. You're always getting at least 2-to-1. Equities run so much closer together, yada, yada, yada.
You have position.
Yeah, and position's far more important in PLO than it is in No Limit.
Right.
Because when a board changes in No Limit, you can still check call your strong hands pretty frequently, and even a lot of your middle strength hands. But in PLO, when a board changes and you have like 2 pair in the flush columns, or just have an overpair when the flush comes, it's like a mandatory check fold. So it's a lot easier to take advantage of board changes, even if they don't benefit you, by being in position, obviously.
Sure.
So it's kind of one of the main reasons that PLO position becomes so much more important. Still, all that said, and all my defensiveness aside, fold pre. It's funny because one of my followers commented on something after I won a tournament. He's like, "Oh, I was playing that deep with you. My screen name was just fold pre," and I was like, "Oh, that's such a good screen name because it sums up so many conversations I've had about a poker hand where I just patiently listen to someone rant for 3 or 4 minutes about every detail they had, and I just smile and nod and say, go, just fold pre.
Just fold pre.
That's me to 2013 Matt Stout is just fold pre. Eli's a boss, move on.
Yeah.
You're in position against the other big stack at the table, just start opening every hand that he doesn't open. So flop is Queen 7-4 with 2 spades and 1 diamond. So I have top pair, flush draw, backdoor flush draw.
Okay, so we have Queen 10, 10, 3, double suited, and one of our suits has come as a flush draw, and our other suit is now a backdoor flush draw. So we've got a lot going on here. We have top pair, with a 10 kicker. Pretty modest, but heads up, might be good. Our flush draw is almost certainly good, right? I mean, that's pretty bad luck if he ends up having a better flush than we do if it gets there.
It's not that shot. I mean, I have the 10 high. If I had the queen high blind versus blind and he has 2 flushes where he can beat me, then it would be a little bit more surprising. But the 10 high flush draw, like, I obviously expect it to be good most of the time, but, like, I'm not going to be shocked, nor am I going to be unwilling to lay it down to, like, turn and river aggression. If I turn a 10 high flush, call a bet, and he barrels again, and I have, like, number 5.
Yeah, I don't know why I was thinking that the flush draw that came was the queen high, but yeah, that's still good to know about the 10 high. All right, so what's the action here on the flop?
So 30K in the middle because he potted it to 3 big blinds, 15K, and I called. He bets 23K on the flop, 3/4 pot, 23 into 30. I think like this is one of the problems in PLO too, is that you're gonna flop a lot of second best hands and modest equity and some like dusty spots where you feel like you have to continue, but now you're just getting yourself in more trouble. And this is a good example.
Right.
I'm obviously not going to fold this flop to 1 bet. We're going to continue. We're not going to bloat and raise this because we'll obviously have to fold it. Actually, that's not true because I think I talked to one person who's like an absolute legend of PLO and that said that he would have just raised, folded, flop because he doesn't want to get to a spot on the turn with like almost any turn card except like an offsuit 10. Like we don't really love our spot on too many turns, so it's still just like he thought it plays better as a semi bluff, but most people disagree with that.
I'm certainly not even qualified, and I'm not a legend of PLO tournament strategy at all. That said, my instinct was I like raising here with the intention of folding to further aggression, right? But I think we'll take it down a lot when we raise, which might mean that we were ahead all along. But also, I think it's a little bit easier if we kind of grab the bull by the horns here, rather than just keep trying to figure out what Eli's up to.
Right.
It feels like he can't. We have a queen, so he is very unlikely to have top set. And I think that if we did flop top set, we would raise it here. And so that's one hand we can rep. But the problem is when he 3-bets.
But we're still not going to be like better than evenish money against anything that he 3-bets. Even if we are ahead, we expect to be pretty smoked by his range if he 3-bets.
Yeah, so we just raise, fold it, and then
Yeah, and to that end, like I think of no limit in terms of like value bet or bluff and never bet to see where you're at, quote unquote, because it's like fish logic. But it is something where like PLO strategy requires completely unlearning that no limit instinct, which is why I made sure that I learned from someone who doesn't play no limit almost at all. But there's a lot more like betting, even though you think that you're only going to get folds from worse hands, and betting when it doesn't necessarily make a sense as a value bet or a bluff, but that checking just like leaves you in a spot where you have to check fold even if you're going to be ahead a lot, and betting will get people with a lot of equity to fold out because their outs aren't clean enough.
Yeah, which is why I agree with that logic to the extent that I understand PLO, and I think that's why I feel like I do want to raise here. So maybe that's 2 people that that vote for raising.
It's definitely not out of the question. I mean, I definitely was still like, I still think Eli's better than me, and I was still trying to pot control to some extent. But to that end, we'll discuss the turn because,
Okay,
things
so
get a little bit. I call 23K, and things are going to get a lot hairier. The turn is a jack, and it gives me another flush draw.
Okay, so now we have both of our flush draws. We have a queen high flush draw and a 10 high flush draw.
And top pair and some straight draw blockers and all kinds of weird things going on.
Yeah.
Still not like the best spot in the world to be in against a world-class player on the bubble of a 10K or PLO championship of the world.
Yeah, what's our SPR about now?
So now we've each put 38K in, and there is 76K in the pot, and we're each playing like 280 back. So 3.5.
Okay, so he bets again here on the turn?
He bets 65K into 78K. Again, about 3/4, a little bit more, 80%.
Jeez, very healthy bets.
Yeah, and sizing should generally be bigger in PLO. Like, there's nothing surprising about the sizing, especially on a double-suited board. A lot of time, full double-suited boards just get like a mandatory full pot from me, whatever with like my whole betting range.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. I didn't know if that would be different in tournaments than it is in cash game.
You still have to like protect against so much more, and your equity so much more vulnerable. Like, even when you have top set on this board, like there are 19 flush draw and straight draws available, so you're getting a little leery about like think about it. Unless the board pairs on Queen Jack 7-4 double suited, like what river card do you want?
Right.
You want like a deuce and a deuce only, or an ace and an ace only. Every other oh no, ace makes it straight with king 10.
Yeah.
So like there is no river card, and even if the board doesn't pair, like, and even if it's more like the deuce, it's if a flush comes, your top set is still like a check, probably fold. If it's the flop flush draw that gets there, the backdoor flush draw is a little trickier to check fold when the backdoor flush flush gets there.
Sure.
So yeah, this whole hand gets pretty sticky.
Matt, do you remember having any kind of feel for Daniel, like what he was like? Were you able to put him on any type of range, or is he just such a crusher that you're like, well, he's going to have a fair number of bluffs here, he's going to have a set a lot, he's going to have this, that? I mean, what were your kind of...
I mean, I don't have much of a live read on why he's a boss. I mean, he like his heart's racing, but like whenever he's putting a lot of money in, that's one of those tells that people like think that they get, but it's super unreliable, because anytime someone's involved in a pot, their heart's going to be racing a lot of the time, whether they have it or not. So
yeah, that's not really a tell, is it? It's just he's playing for $1 million and there's 65 players left, so yeah, his heart's racing a little.
Yeah, exactly. So like it doesn't. I didn't have any like real live read as far as range goes. I mean, I think he's going to bet this way with all sets. I think that if he has top two combos, he's going to have something with it, at least like a gutter or whatever, if he has top two or have a flush draw. So I expect him to have Queen Jack a lot. I expect him to have some semi-bluff combos. Since there's so many draws, like he can just have like a wrap with a flush draw. He probably isn't going to do it with like just a naked wrap. He may check all that to avoid getting potted on. But since it's close to the bubble, he may just keep barreling it and hope for extra fold equity. Overall, like I don't think he's double barreling like super light. Like he's like PLO, you're not. I mean, you might double barrel here with aces, but like you're probably only going to double barrel it if you have a flush draw with it or some straight draw with it and you're comfortable going with it. Or I guess you can bet fold with some of like the weaker but strong combos. It's also like I don't think that I was as good of a hand reader in PLO then as I am now. So overall, like I think that he could have some Queen 7 combos too, is the other thing that I was considering on the turn, is that if he has some hand that he raised lightish with that has Queen 7 in it, that he's going to be double barreling it and maybe in a tough spot if I pile. And if he has naked Queen Jack, or just like Queen Jack no flush draw, even with like maybe a gut shot, I still may get a fold. Not necessarily though.
I think there's a pretty good chance you would, though, Matt, because even if he has Queen Jack, there's some hands that he's ahead of, but he's actually an underdog. That's one thing people that don't play PLO don't always know, is that sometimes you can have the better hand, but because your opponent has so many live outs, you're actually an underdog.
Yeah, I mean, if someone has like Ace King 10-9 here, or Ace King or King 10 6-5 on this particular board of Queen 7-4 Jack, and they have like king 10, 5-6 with both flush draws, they're the favorite over top set. I saw Charter play a hand like that one time in a PLO game. I think it was like in a tournament in Bahamas or something, where he had like like a gut shot at the top end, a wrap on the bottom end, and 2 flush draws. I got it in against top set, and just like scooped when they ran it twice. So I guess it was a cash game.
Yeah.
Oh, I definitely remember him like just scooping against top set, no problem. And to the math, he's like 52% or something.
Wow.
It's insane.
Yeah.
You have like one more win in the deck than your opponent, even though they have the current nuts.
It's pretty sick that you can actually be a favorite versus the nuts.
Yeah, and I mean it's just the whole game is ridiculous.
It's a great game.
I had a hand where I was on A6-4 Rainbow. I was a favorite against top set aces once. What? That shouldn't be a thing.
You had every straight card possible, yeah.
I had 8. My hand is fairly obvious to people who understand PLO equities, but I obviously had the fullest wrap of all time.
Yeah, the super wrap.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's 8-6. It was 8-7-5-3. Don't ask me why I had this hand. 8-7-5-3 double, and I got 3-bet, I think. So I peel because I have 4 cards that don't have an ace in them, so probably gonna see a flop against aces. And it comes A6-4 Rainbow, and I'm like, like he probably has top set, but like my equity can't be that bad, and I'll be able to get some like he'll bet fold kings or some ace king XX rundowns or some like random like if he 3-bet me with like queen jack 10-9 double. He's going to see bet fold A6-4 Rainbow. So there's still like a lot of bet folds from like strong 3-betting hands, as long as it's not top set of aces. But I was like, even if it's top set, this can't be bad. Oh, that bad of equity. And I ran it, and I was like 51%. And I was like, that's not acceptable at all. This seems wrong. So nothing else, and I had the full wrap with 2 backdoor flush draws, and it was just enough.
Let's get it in.
Yeah, it's a fun game. It's just there's so much more to think about. I find it so much more interesting. I get really bored studying No Limit now. I still do it because still playing for No Limit for a lot of money pretty frequently since we don't have as many PLO tournaments as we should. But PLO has definitely kind of taken over my heart. I've been playing a lot of 5-5-10 PLO at Aria pre-COVID, and I might start playing again soon with the plexiglass dividers and wiping everything down with sanitizer and everyone having to wear masks and
You haven't ventured in yet? You haven't done that yet?
I played Venetian 600 and it was weird. It was nice to get back to playing live, but and I'm personally like I don't come in contact with anyone who's older, so like I stayed in lockdown up till now whenever possible, just for the greater good. I'm not that personally concerned about getting it because I'm in pretty good health and young enough, but I do want my dad who's in his 60s to be able to come visit and see his grandson. So
of course, yeah.
I'm starting to get back to a little bit of real life, especially because I went on a downswing online. So it makes me want to play live again, obviously, where people are just punting in the most incredible ways. If I told you some of the hands I saw in that 600 Venetian, you would hop on a plane today. Check raise call the river on a 4 flush board with a straight.
Oh, cool. All right.
What?
I didn't believe you. Okay. Well, here's my ace of hearts.
I mean, this is one of those spots where if I check raise number 2 and this guy 3-bets even for his like min raise plus all in, it's like a snap block.
Right. Right.
Oh man.
Wow.
Yep.
All right. So let's just get back. We have the Queen 10, 10-3 in our hand, and
for some reason.
Yeah, for some reason, and we're blind versus blind against world beater Daniel Alayi. 68 players left in the $10,000 PLO championship at the World Series of Poker. We are in the big blind with Queen 10, 10-3 double suited, and on the flop we had a flush draw, and top pair, and on the turn we picked up another flush draw. So now we have both a queen high backdoor flush draw and a 10 high front door flush draw. We also have a pair of queens and some blockers, some pretty important blockers to the straight draws that are out there. So, did I get all that right?
Yeah, that also leads toward, even though it's a backdoor straight, the 10-10 blockers are actually more of an argument to call turn to try to bluff some straight rivers. So, I'm just still in this. So remind me again why I decided that while I'm still fresh to PLO, I decided to take this gem of a hand to a flop against a world-class player. Just fold pre, Matt.
Fold pre, Matt.
Just fold pre. Move on. There's not even antes.
All right, so he bets really big again.
Yeah, he bets big again. So recapping the hand: Queen 10-10 3, Queen 7-4 flop, Jack turn. Like you said, I have 2 flush draws, and he raised a 15K pre, bet 23K on the flop, and bet 65K, 13 big blinds on the turn. Yeah. We're playing 280K effective, and I am genuinely like, I have no idea what to do. I really was like, part of me wants to just see if I can get him to fold here because I have like half the deck with 2 flush draws, and there's some chance that like I'm ahead and gonna get outplayed on the river or outdrawn on the river. But I think overall, like, this is just looking at this now, it's just like a call turn, and rivers should play pretty easily. Like,
I agree.
If I river the 10 high flush that from the flush draw I flop, and he checks, my hand's probably good. May or may not be worth betting, but it should play out pretty easily because if he barrels, it should look like I have the nut flush draw a lot. So if he barrels on the river when I make a 10 high flush, I can actually just fold it.
Fold it, yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Or a queen high flush, I need to fold if the board didn't pair. Yeah. So that'll be really easy. Just call those rivers, check back with my mediocre top pair showdown value in a lot of spots with the river bricks. But like we said, there's not really many bricks to this board. When it's Queen 7-4 Jack, like almost everything is going to make a higher low straight possible or river or make a flush possible.
Sure.
So I think my plan should just be call fold spade rivers, call the diamond rivers with the backdoor flush, fold most other rivers if he does barrel. But I decided I'm just going to try to put a world-class player who's like a multi-millionaire to the test for no reason. And I potted it in there and got it in for another 280K for the goddamn chip lead.
I mean, I don't hate it. Like, like you said, you might be able to get him to fold better. Even if he ends up getting all in with you, you've got plenty of outs in all likelihood. It's not bad. I wanted to do that on the flop.
Yeah, but that's when you can't fully go with it.
Right.
That's right. Like a semi-bluff, hope it just take it now.
Right. Now on the turn, it's like, okay, well now it's going to be all the chips.
Yeah, I think I like flop one because then I have like an escape hatch in case he's really nutted.
Yeah, I like having that as like exit strategy.
Even though like I'm kind of against that logic and no limit, but maybe too much so to the point where I don't raise enough in these weird spots post where maybe I should. Yeah. But that's because I've been studying PLO more than I've been studying no limit. Anyhow, potted it in there and got in for 280K, and his hand was ace queen jack 8, and interestingly, regarding what I said about what flushes I would and wouldn't call with, he had the backdoor nut flush draw. So he had my queen high flush draw covered.
Oh, that's brutal.
So even if I call turn, I'm gonna snap call off all the diamond rivers and lose.
Yeah.
And if he does decide to bluff, I think he had a queen blocker to the to the flop flush draw. Like usually you want number one or number two blockers if you're bluffing with them, but there's a chance, especially with bubble consideration, that he might have turned that into a bluff on the river. I don't think he would because my hand looks too much like the nut flush draw, and a lot of my range is going to be nut flush draw when I call twice.
Sure.
So, but if he did decide to bluff the spade rivers, and he's obviously going to, whether he bets or checks with the backdoor flush, I'm going to end up getting it in. But if he decides to bet the spade rivers, he's going to bluff me off my 10 high flush. And he's obviously going to get all the money on the diamond rivers. And he did not seem happy to call. Like, he tanked a little bit and then, like, stuck it in. So at least I get some consolation points in that he didn't seem thrilled about it.
Yeah, but, he just has too much going on. He's got top two pair. He's got the nut flush draw. There's just too much going on there.
Yeah. So I need to river a set of tens or river my flop 10 high flush draw to win. So my equity is like in the 20s.
Oh.
Like you said, you're like, I don't think your flush draw is going to be bad heads up. I was like, just wait. Even my backdoor queen high flush draw is not going to be good.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it is pretty unlikely, Matt. Just because it happened doesn't mean it's not unlikely. But
no, but I mean, just from playing millions of hands, trust your flush draw, even heads up, your flush draw is going to be beat pretty frequently.
Yeah, a lot more frequently than those of us who are more accustomed to Hold'em. Obviously, or it's a lot more frequently than that. Well, how'd you get there? Did you hit the 10 on the river?
That's a good one, buddy. River's an offsuit 5. There's some chance that if I just call turn, this is one of the other interesting things that leads to just calling in position, even with some monstrous draws, is because then you can value bet when you get there and you can bluff a lot of cards that you don't.
Right.
Like I said, I have 10-10 blockers. If the river's a 9, an 8, an ace, a king, I have the blockers to the nut straight. And a lot of times I'm going to have blockers to both the nut straight and the bottom end of it. And it's way better when you have, like having ace when it comes king, queen, jack is not nearly as valuable as having 10-10 to block both 10-9 and ace-10. So I'm going to have the perfect straight river blockers. But the problem is that most of the straights that have 10-10 in them are going to be straights where I didn't have a straight draw on the flop and I would have had to back into it. So we get into the same kind of territory of why I'm going to call off the backdoor flush, but not necessarily call the flop flush. Like, he may be able to make some hero calls when the river's a king that he wouldn't have if it was a flop queen jack 4 and then a turn 7, because he's going to expect a lot more of the 10-10 straight draws if I could have flopped it since money went in on the flop.
Yeah, you wouldn't have called a pot-sized bet on the flop with just a gut shot, right? So
right, but like there's still so many ways to back into it that it's still like possibly credible to rep it in PLO because you can have some other things going on and then just back into it.
Yeah,
it's just harder to rep. Which is why I didn't love them as blockers as much on the turn and why they didn't stray me toward call a little bit more, which I wish they had.
Well, it makes sense. I mean, that your logic there makes sense, and I also can see, Matt, why you've been thinking about this hand for 7 years, because obviously that was a big spot. But still, I still say it's pretty unfortunate that your queen flush was no good. I mean, that's pretty sick.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because even when you break things down the best way you possibly can, you can still just be setting yourself up to get outplayed.
Right.
It's kind of funny.
Yeah, especially when you're playing in a 10K. You're up against some pretty steep competition there, but now you are the steep competition because you spent the last 7 years thinking about that hand and so many others, and now they're afraid to sit with you.
Some of them are flocking to the table. Depends on the stakes and the lineup.
For sure.
But fun transitioning to cash though. Like, I never really enjoyed no limit cash that much, but I love PLO so much that it makes it easier for me to play cash and not be able to chase 50, 100, 200 buy-ins, but still enjoy it because like the game is more interesting to me.
Yeah, definitely.
Even if I don't get to have the hunt.
I really enjoy PLO as a cash game. I haven't played too many PLO tournaments. They always sucker me into the half PLO, half no limit tournament every year at the Rio. I end up playing that one every summer. But otherwise, I stay out of the PLO world tournament wise. But I do like playing in the cash games, and mostly because I'm so good at flipping.
I was gonna say, didn't we play 1-2 PLO on WSOP.com the other day?
Definitely, yeah, I love it.
I just remembered that right now. Is that Clayton Fletcher?
Yeah, I love it. I'm all about it.
Sit down. I'm in.
yeah. And speaking of flocking to the table, if you see me in the PLO streets, as the kids say, these online PLO streets where everybody knows it's not my best game, but like yourself, Matt, I've been studying, I've been trying to improve. I'm very fascinated by PLO, as there's just so much more to think about, as you said.
Well, text me if you have any questions on PLO hands. Just don't do it if it's a no-limit hand. I don't want to talk about
it. I appreciate that. I'll definitely take you up on that. And don't worry, I would never send you anything with 2 cards. All right. So let's all.
I'm just gonna text back yawn ZZZ.
Yeah, fold pre, leave me alone. All right, well I'm gonna let you go, but can you just tell everybody one more time the time and the place for this Saturday?
This Saturday at 7 o'clock Eastern, 4 o'clock Pacific, we are going to have a $500 tournament for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. And just real quick about St. Jude, this is what I forgot to mention earlier when we had kind of wandered and I was trying to get back on topic. Not only does St. Jude pay for the treatment, travel, and housing for these families and patients going through this, so that since all the parents should have to do is focus on helping their child live, but they're also the leader in providing cancer research, and they don't hide their discoveries made at St. Jude. They, unlike a lot of other hospitals that are, for-profit institutions, St. Jude freely shares all of the medical research that's ever been done at St. Jude, so that St. Jude protocol can be used to treat patients across the country. And around the world. They do amazing work, and they are my favorite charity to support, especially with the way my family's been affected by cancer this year. Go to stjude.org/against-all-odds. That's stjude.org/AGAINSTALLODDS.
Make your charitable contribution, and then come see me at the table and talk as much trash as you want in the chat. Come and play poker with us this Saturday. For $500, you could win a seat in the 2021 World Series of Poker main event, and we're going to have some fun. It's going to be a good time, and we're going to raise money for, obviously, an extremely worthy cause. So.
Yep. We got Stapes emceeing. There's going to be Ryan Reeves in the tournament from the Vegas Golden Knights, along with Daniel Negreanu. And in the silent auction, whether or not you're playing, go bid on some silent auction items or make a donation at that site. We have meet and greets with William Carlson from the Vegas Golden Knights and Jason Alexander, who everyone knows is George from Seinfeld.
Gotta love it. Well, listen, Matt, really appreciate you hopping on the podcast again. We always love hearing from you, and I'm glad that you're able to continue your wonderful work with the CSOP. Anything else you want people to know about before we say goodbye?
That's about all.
All right, well, we'll see you Saturday, buddy.
Awesome. Appreciate it, buddy. I'll talk to you soon.
So for Matt Stout and for everyone here at Tournament Poker Edge, I'm Clayton Fletcher. Thank you so much for listening.